Guys, welcome back to Southern Extreme TV. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. We are going to be talking about the ATN X-Sight 4K Pro. So let's go right into this video. So guys, I picked up this ATN X-Sight 4K Pro the other day, and I want to give you guys an initial product review. I've been seeing a lot of reviews going out on a lot of different outdoor hunting, shooting equipment, but I'm not seeing a lot of people do follow-up reviews. So I want to do an initial first impression video on this scope, my thoughts, the goods, the bads, the in-betweens, and just give you guys my honest opinion at a first glance, up close look at it. And then my plan is later on in the year, give you guys an additional review, maybe a little bit closer, once I get about a year under my belt of running this night vision and day/night vision scope, so I can give you a more honest review of how it works in the field and really put this thing to the test and really figure it out. Let's jump straight in to this scope. One of the first initial things that you're going to notice about this scope from a night vision perspective is it looks a lot different than some of your other traditional thermal imaging scopes and night vision scopes on the market. There's been a big push in the past 2 years of making night vision equipment a lot more streamlined and a lot more user-friendly as far as making them similar to a traditional hunting rifle scope. Now, straight out of the box, one of the first things that I noticed about it whenever I turned it on was the fact that I do not have to have my eye all the way up on this gun. So right here, I've got this gun. Right now, I've got this ATN X-Sight 4K set up on the 6.5 Grendel. When I get down on the scope, you can see I have a very good eye relief. So I don't have to get all the way up on it, and I don't have to get all the way back. It's a good, happy medium, and it's comfortable to get on there. It doesn't feel like I have to really cram my face up against the scope like I have experienced on some of the other thermal imaging scopes out there on the market. One thing that I do personally like about this style setup from ATN is you have the zoom knob on the left side. It is very easy to use. So for example, the ATN thermal imaging scope that I use to film pretty much all of my nighttime coyote hunts on, the zoom is on the top. I have a rubber button. The button that's farthest away from me zooms the scope in. The button closest to me zooms the scope out. The one thing that I don't like about it is it takes it a little while to zoom in. There's a little bit of a lag on trying to get in and get out. With this scope, it zooms in a lot faster than the traditional that I'm used to. So what I'm going to do is I want to kind of give you guys the scope view of what I am talking about, and hopefully I'm rolling some of that in this, because this scope can also record, which is really cool. So I've got an SD card inserted in here. There's a rubber flap right here where you can charge it, and then there's another one over here to the side where you can insert an SD card. So I just want to give you guys an example right here. Maybe we can get this rolling. So it looks like we're recording there. Obviously you can see my boat. So I want to give you guys an example of how fast this thing can zoom in. So there you're at max, and then there you are all the way back out for whenever you start scanning. So you can tell this thing is really nice. If something does come in, I get on it, take a shot, and then I can zoom back out and try to find that second or third coyote. I really like that. In my personal opinion, just in playing with this scope, the field of view, and as far as the eye relief, the field of view, the eye relief, and the fact that you can zoom really fast is some of the, I guess, the first impression positives that I have of this scope. One of the negatives that I got about it, right here, it's a 30mm tube. So any typical 30mm scope rings will work on this scope, which is a positive, but I don't know how sturdy this scope will be right here in what I'm gonna call the weak areas, which is your tubular spot. And the reason that I say that is there's a lot of components, a lot of electrical equipment that goes inside this scope, which is a lot different than your traditional hunting rifle scope out on the market. So I would be interested to see how well this would hold up if you was to say, you know, bump this scope, or if it was to fall out of the back seat of your truck, if it would actually withstand that type of abuse. I know the thermal imaging unit that I use from ATN, it's set up a little different. It doesn't have that traditional style look, and it's a little beefier and a little meatier, and it actually looks like it would hold up a little bit better. But I don't know, they may have done a real good job on designing this to where it can withstand some pretty good bumps, because coyote hunters, man, we're pretty rough on our stuff. Now, one of the things that, another thing I want to point out with this 4K Pro is you have the ability to use it at night. Also, you have the ability to use it in the daytime. So right now, the footage that I am rolling, you can see is in the daytime. So this is a digital scope. So if you wanted to buy a scope and have it work for, say, squirrel hunting, deer hunting, hog hunting, anything that you may be doing in the daytime, you can do it through this scope. And then you also have that ability to go and set up at night with an IR light and swap modes over. The cool thing about this scope is it is very simple to swap over from daytime to nighttime modes, which is really, really nice. You don't have to go through a lengthy process of clicking all kinds of buttons. So that seems to be pretty nice at first. The way that it charges, you have to plug the scope up. So what that means is, let's say I want to charge this scope overnight, I would either A, have to take the scope off of the firearm itself for it to be able to lay on the charger and charge all night, or I have to take the gun completely out of my gun safe, plug the scope up, and leave it for 24 hours. Now that may be a problem for some of you guys that have kids or just youngins running around the house, nieces, nephews, whatever the case may be. That's a negative that I see about it. What I would like to see is a battery pack option. Now you do have the option to plug in an external battery pack to this scope to power it, but the cable, the charging cable that comes with this is big and bulky and beefy, which is nice for charging it inside your house, but not necessarily the greatest thing whenever you're trying to attach a battery pack, let's say on your stock, and running around and power your device. So having to leave the gun completely out of your gun safe all night for charging, or having to remove the scope just to charge it all night, that is a little bit of a negative. And that's one of the things that, for me, probably the biggest thing initially that I would say is a negative. And that may be just a preference thing on my end, because the ATN thermal imaging scope that I have runs solely off of either AA batteries, or how I power it is off of a battery pack. So whenever it's time for me to charge, I just remove the battery pack off of the little stock pack that I have, plug it into the wall, my gun, my scope, my suppressor, everything goes inside a locked gun safe. It's secure, it's safe, and then my batteries can charge all night and then all day the next day. And I don't have to worry about somebody breaking in and stealing everything I got. Briefly spoke on it just a minute ago, was that this tube is a 30mm tube, so you have the ability to use any scope rings that you want. So for example, if you want to use the provided scope rings that ATN sends you in the box, you have that option as well. But for me, I like to personally use something that I think might hold up a little bit better, and buy some aftermarket rings to go on here. So right here, what we have is a removable scope mount. So all I have to do is adjust these screws, take it off of the rail, and then I can take this scope from this gun and place it onto another gun. So being able to have that ability is top notch in my opinion. I really do like that feature. The only thing that I've got against the focus on the front of the scope is the fact that it is really difficult to turn. So let me turn this scope on and start recording and give you guys an example. So right now I'm going to focus out and then focus it back in there. So that is a little tough, but the good thing about it, once you get it set where you need it, you really don't have to mess with it all that much. The only time you're gonna have to mess with this is, let's say for example, I shoot a coyote and I wanna walk up and I'm doing some filming. I'm gonna have to adjust this up close to me to be able to get that nice clear image for you guys. But for the most part, once you get it set, it's pretty much there. You don't have to really do any other adjustments to it. So obviously you can see how clear my boats are right there. You have the recording function, you have the photo function, so you can take photos through the scope, you can record through the scope, which is all nice. And I like the fact that you have the SD card option. A lot of the scopes out there on the market, they record internally. So what that means is whenever you want to share your hunts, share your photos, whatever the case may be, you have to actually plug the scope itself up to a computer and download that footage. With an SD card, all I got to do, pop that SD card out, I can take my gun, take my scope, put it back in my gun safe, lock it up, and then I have that SD card that I can pop into my computer, download all the footage that I need, and go from there. So you have the ability with this scope to set up different profiles through the app and also through the scope itself. So for example, I have this scope zeroed in on this 6.5 Grendel right now. If I wanted to take this scope off and put it back on my 22, I can go in and select the profile that I created for that 22 LR rifle, and it will re-zero this scope back to where that 22 LR is at. So if I want to go shoot squirrels, want to go shoot whatever the case may be, I can put the scope on that 22, and then when I get tired of using it on that 22, I can then take it, put it back on this 6.5 Grendel, select the 6.5 Grendel profile that I zeroed, it will recalibrate that scope to this specific gun. So being able to do that is one of the coolest things out there, because you could potentially buy this one scope and use it across a wide range of different firearms that you have in your house. The IR light that comes with this scope, which ATN does send you, is a little on the weak side in my opinion. I would plan on, if you purchase this 4K Pro, I would plan on investing another $100 to $200 on a better IR light if you are looking into using this scope for nighttime hunting. Overall guys, I would say for the value that this scope brings for what it actually cost MSRP is phenomenal. I'm going to try my best to put a link in my description below that will take you directly to this scope. So if you're wanting to check out some pricing, prices vary depending on where you're looking at. They're all probably going to be within $100 of each other, but it's definitely a sub $1,000 scope setup, which is phenomenal. So if you're in the market, you want to spend less than $1,000, you're wanting to get into nighttime hunting for predators or varmints, whatever the case may be, this right here would be a phenomenal scope to get you out there and to get you going. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed today's video. Hopefully this first initial impression of this scope is something you guys were looking for. Obviously I want to run this scope for another year or so and really test it out for shooting squirrels, trying to shoot maybe some raccoons, some coyotes, whatever the case may be. I really just want to test it out before I give you a full length breakdown of what I think about it. From an initial impression standpoint, it's worth every penny. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're new to Southern Extreme TV, make sure you hit that subscribe button in the top left corner, trying to grow this thing to 100,000 subscribers. Every click means the world and gets me one step closer. Drop a comment down below if you got any questions, guys. I try to answer them if I can, and if you got any recommendations for videos, drop them down there also. So thanks so much for hanging out with me, guys. See you next time.